Listening. When it comes to listening, it's beyond just the obvious common sense application of listening to the people who know more than you. Sometimes even listen to people who don't know as much as you. Just listen to what people have to say and have to teach so that you can learn as much as possible. When you're talking about the martial arts, listening can have an energy and a kinesthetic aspect as well as a visual aspect. Let's go with the visual aspect first of listening. So listening isn't really listening, it's looking. It's looking at your opponent to see what type of cues they give off when you're sparring with them. We call that seeing if they telegraph. If you see them, their hands up, you see them do this flinch. They have a habit of pulling back before they throw a punch, for example. That's you need to listen and really observe, but that's under listening to see how they telegraph what they're going to do. Some people stop breathing, change their breathing. They may breathe in before they kick out. That's you need to listen to the way they breathe. That's actually with your ears. So pick up on little nonverbal cues that they do before they attack. One thing I used to be guilty of, I don't care if I give this away. Somebody pointed out that before I would throw a high kick, I would bring my hands up high like this and then throw a high kick. Probably because it was drilled into me. Keep your hands up when you're kicking, so they won't come around your kick. When they come inside your kick, they won't punch you in the face. Or like if I kick and somebody gets around my foot and they think they're going to come in, I could hit them. But I was doing it a little too much. It was like every time I go through a high kick, I wouldn't just go into a guard. I would bring my hands up high. So that was a cue. That was a telegraph. And you need to observe slash listen to how people telegraph moves. It's like Vic Moore has a video. I wish I could. I'm not going to jack any clips from it. I think I might I'll put a link to it if I can find it. If I can find it, I'll put a link to it below. Where he starts talking about how people telegraph when they're sparring. That's definitely one meaning of listening. But let's go into the kinesthetic or touch aspect. If you've ever done any grappling, sometimes you'll notice that people's body is similar to the visual telegraphing from punch and kick, but they may tend to dip a little, or you'll feel them back up, or they'll pause or something in their movements. They'll give a little cue that they're about to do something. Once you get familiar, you start feeling like, oh, he feels like he's about to go in for a foot sweep. Or he always does this, or she always does that every time they're going for a choke. You'll feel it in the body. You'll start feeling which way they turn. That's a form of listening. That's not with your ears, but that's listening with your skin in terms of what the opponent is going to do. Okay? I'm not going to put this, I'm going to be vague on purpose. If you ever wanted to use constriction on a person when you're pinning them, you need to listen. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'll just say listen like a cobra. So listening takes on a different aspect, or especially if you're doing like a touch, what do you call that? A push hands type thing where you're touching hands. They call that sensitivity training. That's learning to listen with your skin so you can start feeling where the person is going to go. That physical contact can also subconsciously translate to when you're at a distance and you're trying to get a gauge for what somebody's trying to do. Now, back on the point of physical, if I'm fighting you, if we're really fighting and you see me go like this, that's observing, but that's still a form of listening. If I'm doing this, I'm pulling, reaching for a weapon. So you need to listen from a martial standpoint, which means pay attention to what the person is getting ready to do. See if they're reaching for a weapon. See if when they're grappling with you, they give some kind of tell. If it feels like, I tell sometimes when people are grappling and having trouble, I may tell them to move into the empty space. Because usually if you move into where it feels empty, you may be able to get off a throw. Or I tell them to redirect the person to the empty space. Because sometimes when you redirect them to the empty space, that's where you can put them off balance. And then you can come in and execute your throw. So that is definitely a form of listening. So listening for the martial arts can be looking, it can be listening to their breath, and it can be feeling. Now, in terms of the energy that somebody gives off, some people give off an emotional vibe when they're sparring. If you feel their energy is going up, you know they're getting hyper, they're getting ready to do something. If you feel the energy is going down, you got to be careful because then you know that they're really plotting. And sometimes that's a sign that they're listening to you. One of the best sparring matches I've ever had in my life, it was when I was at Brown Belt. I was a Brown Belt in Tonsil. He was with this guy named Calvin Peace. I tell a lot of people about this sparring match. Even though I lost, Calvin, I think I ended up with like second or third or something because Calvin won. But like Calvin, nobody before or since, and even people that were better than him, nobody pushed me that hard in a sparring match. There was only one attack thrown by each one of us. Because I had to spend the whole time listening. I had to get a feel for what he was doing, and I had to pay attention to his energy, and I had to pay attention to how he positioned himself, and I had to pay attention to his breathing and his timing. Because he knew my game because we worked out a lot in class, and he had a lot more experience than me. I had to improve and come there because all the other matches I had, I think I may have had maybe 2 or 3 matches before that. I could just win those just quick. Just come in there real fast, counter, do something unorthodox, yep, and catch the person. But none of that tricks, none of those tricks were working with Calvin. I had to improve my game, and ever since that match, he brought me to a higher level because I had to listen. I really had to listen. Another thing in terms of listening, if you want to go about self-defense, yes, your ear is bringing auditory information, but you also have to be aware of what's going on around you. So listening is means your awareness. That's what I think could be an interpretation of this move for not Dan Gunn, for Kwangay. How you do this? It just makes me think, this is just my opinion, it just makes me think, I'm going to tune into the world around me. Okay? Now, I know that's not the actual application. We got gallbladder up here. But this move makes me think of that. Now, I'm going to listen to the world around me before I start, doing what I'm going to do. So think about that. Look around, when you're out in public, see who looks like they're up to something, see who's just minding their business, see who's looking at you mean, see who's not. That is listening. Even though it's not the literal translation of I'm going to use my ears, listening just means shutting yourself up to taking what's going on around you. And some people, like if they're deranged, they give you a bad feeling. If they're angry, they give you a bad feeling. I don't know if you've ever been around somebody that's so mad that their body temperature goes up and they're giving off heat. They're giving off heat towards you. That's a form, if you can feel that heat, that's a form of listening. So that's how the skill of listening can apply to the martial arts. Again, I hope I don't forget, I'm going to put the link to one of Vic Moore's videos where he's really got the whole thing about telegraphing down in terms of sparring. So I'm just going to defer to him on that. And I'll keep being me, the generalist here. So this is how you apply the skills that you need for everyday life into martial arts, which in turn spill back over to everyday life. And this skill is skill number 4, listening. Peace.